we can use it. I have several questions, but first of all, I want to ask you if you have any comments or questions for your colleagues here in this session, because I think it's a good way to start to cross your own comments and questions.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Anson.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. It's like really changing how we design as architects every day. I wanted to ask about like the computational power you needed for a real-time transition between the augmented or virtual reality you have and changing it the way you go, and how fast it can be translated to like the Grasshopper or whatever software you do. Like this interaction, yeah, for my experience, would take like forever to have, but like how you overcome this?
Yeah, I think all my workflow, they are based in Grasshopper. So this AR is kind of interface and also a tool for my research. So for example, like what we do in the workshop this year, we just tell the student like what is the process in Grasshopper, and they need to know the logic of the parametric design. And we extrude some like parametric sliders just directly to the AR devices. So they can actually see what's going to happen through the AR devices, like have a preliminary design experiments in AR. But for like, so this kind of method is pretty quick and visible. But for some deep research, like what I did for HoloLens, so that is different from the mobile devices. So they can read more interactive things from human gestures. So it's gonna take a little bit longer time for you to translate, and also for you to develop the logic. How can you change your movement into some design languages? So I think the second method that I present is for more deep research. But if you want to try some AR experiments, you can try very shallow experiments by using mobile devices. It's kind of easy if you have any Grasshopper knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any other question or comment regarding the interaction between you? I mean, I see some connections between the papers, several connections between the papers. Maybe you saw those too. So okay, let's start breaking the ice, let's say. For Ahmed, I have several questions. For example, it's not completely clear for me, how did you measure sensations, because it's kind of tricky to measure that, and also it was not clear for me what was the visual stimulus involved, because I think I mean it wasn't quite clear. I mean, it was something about the color, but it wasn't clear if it only was color, or it was like a 3D space with a color involved or something like that. Yeah. And also what means that the gustatory was ranked first specifically. I mean, you said that, but it wasn't clear also what that means. Sorry for the accumulation of questions.
Okay, let me share my slides like once again. So like for your first question, yeah, how did we collect TSV and TCV, or like thermal sensation, thermal comfort volts? that was based on ASHRAE recommendations, ASHRAE 55 to be specific. So basically, it was a pooled survey. The participants would choose like a number from 1 to 7. For the sensation, 1 means very cold, 7 means very hot, and it ranges accordingly. And for the comforts, it ranges from like very uncomfortable to very comfortable, same for the same. But the first one like was a 7-point kind of transition. Like the thermal comfort was like 5 points transition. So that's how we collected the different thermal sensation, thermal comfort. For your second question, you can see here, like in the above images, this was like the VR environment they were immersed in. So like on the very left, this is like the experiment room they were sitting, and when we put the headset, that's what they see. It's like, it was provided by like Oculus. We can see like the different colors, different parameters. It's very primitive that gives a sensation of a virtual reality, but still has some architecture elements from what we can see every day. Like there is a stairs, there's like the walls coming around. It gives a sensation of like the VR experience. For the last question, the Gastaffi was ranked first. So basically, in the third vote, like right around here, we introduced the rest of the sensations, like the olfactory in the sense of smell, the gustatory in the sense of taste, and so on, and the auditory as well. So the choice of like the stimuli was based on previous research. So for the olfactory, for example, we tested the sense of citrus and lavender, and we asked them like if they noticed differences. And that was based on like previous research saying those two olfactory sensations gives like a sense of meditation or like elevates thermal comfort. For the gustatory, we use like different kind of juices and so on. So after the third vote, we asked them what helped you in like improving your thermal comfort, or what helped you in like elevating your thermal sensation, and the intensity of each one. Like we gave it like quite moderately for each one, but like we asked them what they were focusing on, and that's how we got the first ranking for what helped them elevate their thermal comfort and the thermal sensation. So that's how we ranked them. Like for every sensation, they voted from 1 to 10 for each one. Like they say the olfactory, the intensity of the olfactory was 5, for example, and so on. And we collected all the data and ranked them accordingly to see which sensation was like the most elevating or the most needed most research.
Okay.
I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, in the third stage, when you introduce the other sensitive or let's say senses involved, the visual stimulus with the Oculus is still there.
Yes, it's still on.
Okay, it's still on. Okay. So in a way, you mean that if you introduce some olfactory and gustatory, let's say, inputs, it's like you forget a little about the thermal stimulus?
Yeah, you can say that like in some terms, it gives them a different sensation that elevates the thermal sensation a little bit. So yeah,
okay,
you can say that.
it's that, I think that's very interesting, because in a way you are focusing on the relationship between the visual immersive stimulus and the let's say the thermal ambiental stimulus.
Yeah.
But the third stage is kind of I don't know, like disrupting this relationship in a very strange way. So I think it's very interesting. Yeah, sorry.
No.
Great. Well, thank you, Ahmed. And I have also some questions for Yansong. You talked about Yeah, my question was, or well, I have also several questions. For example, do I prefer control the parameters immersively as you presented, or do I prefer to have, let's say, an algorithmic approach to the parameters in terms of, I mean, if we understand how Grasshopper is giving us some possibilities in terms of the algorithmic approach to architecture or to design, it's like the difference between Grasshopper and for example, I don't know, Rhino or another different kind of 3D modeling software is that you can have this approach to a more generative way to understand form and the relationship between form and other, let's say, variables like weight or something like that. What do you think this immersive approach is kind of adding to that, or maybe subtracting to that more algorithmic approach to the generation of forms or designs?
Okay, so for example, like the immersive experiments that I did is we have like two steps. The first tab is like play with the parameter sliders. So because all of the workflow is based on the Grasshopper, and also now the plugin that developed for the AI environment, they are also in Grasshopper. So for that, I use Grasshopper for an experiment. Yeah, I think in the future, also we want to develop our own platform like more user-friendly instead of people need to understand what they're gonna do in parametric design. But instead of that, they can use their user interface like a more friendly guidance to tell them like how to develop their design or how to do the design in the immersive environment. And also, I think the idea for me to create this kind of method is to reduce the scale, because now, for now, like we design on a computer laptop or we design by using the screen-based things. So it's kind of not that immersively, so we cannot experiment that what kind of space we are providing for others. We can only do that by like rendering or some animation or from some construction blueprint, but we cannot actually experiment that space. So I think the idea for me to do some immersive design is like the designer can design on set immersively in real time. So they know what kind of parameter they are changing and how the structure gonna changing in real time. And they will preview that like in a real scale. So I think this method is kind of experiments, but I cannot say that it's a matured immersive design method because I only want to use this way to give the designer or architects a different experiments from what they are doing now. And for the other design logic, because the plugin is based on the parametric design logic, so I think there are also something gonna happen in Unity, so which is not following the parametric design logic. They can create more thing by coding or something they want to do more freedomly instead of the parametric logic. Yeah, I think it's gonna happen in the future as well because now the augmented reality is quite fresh and the related plugin or technology things they are not well developed. So what I can achieve as an architect is using the parametric design platform. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I think that in your presentation, but I think even maybe in every presentation, it was something related, like I don't know, on a generational transformation or intergenerational process between the, let's say, the digital natives and the non-digital natives. So when you think about this more friendly kind of approach to something, I think that most of the time we are thinking about this complex relationship between the people that already know how to code, or how to write a script, and the people that doesn't have this knowledge. So I think we are in a time that we have to consider this transformation, this transition, but maybe in the next 5 or I don't know, 7 years, maybe the situation will be very different in terms of the ability or the knowledge on how to code, for example. So maybe we can ask ourselves if these immersive approaches can have also the possibility to be more interactive in terms of coding. Maybe, I don't know. It's just an idea. The other question for you is that I mean, you said that this immersive AR tool, it's intended for the early stages of design, but I'm questioning myself if do the immersive design have a connection with the masonry construction physically? I mean, in terms of a robot or a mason, because I can see in the images you shown us that some of the examples, for example, the bricks are kind of flying. So I'm asking myself if there is a connection with physical construction.
Yeah, I'm doing the physical simulation now. So the physical simulation going to be the second step of the immersive design. So for example, what I'm doing now is trying to simulate them in Grasshopper after the designer got the outcome. So through that simulation, it will simulate by gravity, like this column or this sculpture or some other structures. It can stand by itself or not, or which parts will be fragile to falling down, or also the structure need like adhesive or other glue to make them stronger or stand by itself. So it's part 2 of the immersive design. So I'm now developing. And for the outcome of the participant, because the workshop is just for 1 day, so it's difficult for them to carry both design and also think them in a structural, stable way. So yeah, so the outcome of the workshop is kind of tricky, and they do whatever they want. It's just a chance for them to get the immersive design experiments. But I'm now developing the physical simulation part.
No, I mean that you don't need to develop the physical part, but I think that maybe you can introduce some variables in terms of, or some parameters in terms of the physical simulation of the real masonry. For example, if you think about I don't know, programming in processing or something like that, you can have this kind of red highlights when your code is not working, you know? So maybe you can have some kind of coding of the non-working column or something like that to make it more evident, let's say, or something like that. But it's just some ideas, because I think that you said something about the inspiration in the early stages. So maybe it's not so about the the physical construction of the column, but more about the inspiration that you can have during the exercise. So yeah, can be like that also. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, so the next one is Hantu, and I have also some questions. You said something about the emotion labels. For me, that was kind of very coded, you know, very kind of cryptic in the way that it wasn't. It was kind of difficult to understand how it worked, you know, the emotional labels, and to understand that, and to understand which kind of emotions and which kind of labels were involved, and something like that, because in your presentation were like numbers or codes, so it was kind of difficult. And the other question is, you had like two states, and one was calm and the other was active, if I remember correctly. And I was asking myself, if you're not calm, maybe the other feeling, maybe it could be something more related to anxiety. But you said active, so it was kind of I don't know, how do you relate this active state instead of the calm state with these more, let's say, this state more related with the anxiety, let's say, you know, in terms of non-calm. That's it.
Okay. First, the question is about where is the emotional label come from? Something like that. Actually, the emotion labels are the state, as you said, is calm and active, because I have only 4 channels of brain waves, so I cannot cast happy, fear, sad, and so many very complicated emotions. So, and I use the front hand sensors, which is good at to tell you if your brain is active or calm. For example, when you sleep, you're definitely calm. When you are dreaming, maybe you're active in this way. So that is the emotion label. Why I need to label them is I want to tell the difference between calm and active, and then I want to give these labels to the natural language processing model to tell the languages if they are calm or active, because sometimes when we are speaking about the spaces, we don't know if the architects or if we are calm or active in some sense. So that's where the emotional labels come from. And
okay, so when you say active, you're talking about brain activity, literally.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not the state of emotional state, it's just brain activity in a very literal. Yeah. Okay.
Relationship between the anxiety or stressful feelings, but it's more about the activity of your brain.
Yeah, I can see that, but it was kind of I think if you talked about brain activity, or let's say non-active brain instead of calm, maybe it's more clear, because for me it was a little confusing to understand that
it's not only the activity of our brain, it's more about the stressful activity of our brain, because we have a lot of channels on the brain, and maybe behind our head there's visual channels, and I mean the activity can be a lot of terms, a lot of effects, and we measure more emotional active one. more
Yeah,
emotion.
but yeah, absolutely. But I can see that it's kind of
Yeah,
difficult to
I understand.
translate directly the
Mhm.
EG numbers or graphs to emotions that like
Yeah.
directly translate them. I think it can be kind of difficult, but I can see the relationship between that and the natural language recording, so you can also like let's say interpolate or maybe deduct some conclusions about that. Yeah. And you said something about the I think that you were very clear in terms of the future work. And I think that that's very important in terms of how to introduce more ways to really understand this activity or non-activity and this kind of emotions in a physical sense. But you said something about the limited spatial parameters of the VR in the VR experience. And I want to ask you why, in terms of if you're looking for the limited spatial parameters in terms of having like more limited variables to measure, or if it was like something that you want to change in terms of the limitations of the spatial experience.
No, I just want to show some because of the time, and if I want to add one more parameters, I need to do double the experience. I need to spend double time to do the experiments. So I choose some important one, but there are also some more, maybe more important one, like color, like or light.
Yeah.
Or some materials. Yes, they're super important architectural elements, but I'm not included in my experiments.
Okay, but the question is if you're doing that on purpose in terms of limiting the experience, for example, introducing only like geometrical abstract spaces and then introducing light and then introducing color, like to have like a very, you know, like limited for the better measuring of the inputs, or if you're doing that on purpose, or if you want to add more things to make the experience more complex. That's a question.
Oh, I doing that in purpose. I mean,
okay,
I
great.
adjust the parameters in purpose. And I double some parameter. I mean, I double some numbers, and I want to see if there are romantic relationships, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. The last comment is not a question, it's just a comment. I saw that the people had very different perceptions of the same virtual spaces, and it was kind of strange for me how punishment or confinement appears as perceptions of those spaces. Why do you think that appears? Because it was like several times this perception of punishment of someone or confinement.
You mean some very special feelings come from?
Yeah, in the you know, in the description of the space, some people, I think it was like 2 or 3 times, they talked about the punishment of an employee or something like that, and the confinement of a mental health mental patient or something like that. It was kind of strange because the space was very, I don't know, neat, or what do you think that?
Actually, that's a part of very interesting research result, and I don't know how to explain why, because but procedure of the process of how it comes from is that our space is really very abstract, but we ask many questions to the participants, and we also ask the participant, for example, give a name of this room and what do you want to do in this room. If it's a room of your house, what do you want to do here? So we have some more imaginary things to ask the participants. Maybe that's why their language is like very jump from here to there. And because another reason that we want to ask this question is that we want to have more sentences from one participant of one room. So we ask a lot of questions, and some outcome is really very interesting.
Great, great. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, and I have also two questions for Mohad. The first one is if all these hybrid spaces or all these augmented landmarks and so on and so on are really enhancing or impairing the experience, because it's kind of confusing, because you said that it's impairing the experience, like the orientation, but at the same time it's enhancing. So it's how was that for you? And the other question is that you said well, this in I think in the middle of the presentation you said that when you use more information, it's more difficult to orient. That so in a way I think that's counterintuitive, let's say, for me, and maybe it's something related to this generational shift that we were talking about. You know what I mean? That maybe in the next 5 or 10 years that will be more, I don't know, intuitive, more easy to orient in terms of the amount of information. What do you think?
I understand your inquiry. What I meant about impairing is that the GPS systems sometimes impair our spatial memory. It's not the experience. It's not impairing our spatial experience. What I meant about enhancing the spatial experience is the employment of augmented reality application. So it starts to add something to our physical reality that might or not, based on the design considerations that I have mentioned. So it might enhance or might not enhance our spatial experience. Of course, based on limitations or the tracking ability of the augmented technology itself. Sometimes it makes our experience much more or much less engaging in the physical space. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. I think that maybe in your research, not only you, but maybe it will be good to better describe the sample in terms of the people involved in the experience. You know what I mean? Because when we talked about this, for example, this generational shift between non-digital and digital natives and so on, it's maybe it's important to understand how this sample it's built, let's say. But yeah, great. Are there any questions maybe in the audience, or even between you, again, between the presenters, the participants of these sessions? Because I think I want to insist on that. I think there were very well connected, and I think that we can see how each one of the experiences and each one of the research can help the other in a way. You know what I mean? So it was great. And if there are no any questions, yeah, please, Han.
Yeah, can I have a question to Ahmed? Ahmed, I don't know. Yeah, thank you. If I pronounce wrong your name, I'm very sorry. And I have a question about the, I mean, in the virtual environment space, you have the order of the parameters, for example, the temperature first, and then the virtual environment, the visual things second, and then the smells and other things. Why you choose this kind of order? If I
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, previous research showed that like the color or the virtual environment can affect your thermal perception. But like as we said before, like humans or human beings in general are visually dominant creatures. So we basically design and build for the visual sense. So introducing the thermal sensation first and then the visual stimulus showed us the effect of the visual stimulus alone on the thermal or the thermal sensation of the participants. And like it was counterintuitive to previous research because we have seen that the thermal sensation increased, or like the thermal comfort decreased with the visual stimulus alone. So we needed to verify, is it just the color, as we said before in previous research, or if we stimulate a whole different like VR environment. And we have seen that it did not affect them positively, like the thermal. It doesn't necessarily mean that it affected them negatively, but like the thermal stimulus continued to overwhelm them in the thermal environment. And then we introduced the other stimuli, which are like olfactory and gustatory and so on, to see the effect of like all stimulus all together to mitigate this effect of like thermal sensation. And therefore we can see the effect if we can like have a virtual environment that introduce different sensations, we can mitigate like the heat rate risk or the effect of global warming. So that's why we introduced like the thermal and then visual and then all the other stimuli to see the different effects between different participants. I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah. I just have a very like idea. If you change the smells and the visual things, for example, of people living in very smelly spaces, and then if they have very good visual thing, like are they happy or not? It's something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I wanted to like comment on Enrico like question for you at the beginning about the calm versus active, because like I've just presented a paper yesterday about EEG as well, so I have a little bit of experience with that. So basically, we can use like we can spot different emotions on like the two axes of valence and arousal. Like valence means like positivity or pleasantness versus arousal, which is calm or active. So I guess Rodrigo was trying to ask, did you spot like the emotions on the two-dimensional space, or it was just unidimensional for like the arousal, which is active versus calm? I guess it will give like very intricate results for the NLP because as he said, like anxious is active, but it's not pleasant. So it will fall in the negative part of the arousal or for the valence. And that if we need to spot specific emotions, we need to understand both dimensions. So I guess that would be very interesting if you like had a comment on that.
And that's a very good comment. And I didn't choose that model of emotions because in the part of NLP, they do not use this three-dimensional or two-dimensional model of emotions. They usually use like 6 emotions model, like happy, sad, fear, and joy. They use this kind of emotion. I think I follow this kind of thing. But I can also, your suggestion is very good. I can also follow another part of emotions that has 3 or 2 dimensions. Yeah, thank you very much.
Great, great. That's what I was looking for, interaction. Great, thank you very much. Is there any other comment or question?
Sorry, I joined late to this room. I have a
Yeah.
question. I think Mr. Ahmed is working on AC, I mean, effective computing, right?
No, that's Hunt.
Oh, Han, sorry. Okay. Are you working on effective computing?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So I heard that you are talking about 2D or 3D dimension, how we wanna show the emotions. Because I'm working on this and I have this problem. How we want to define the emotions, how we want to separate them together, because I think many parameters are here, and we cannot do it in 2D or 3D. We cannot show it in a 2D or 3D. So have you ever worked on it, or do you have any idea about it?
My I mean my attempts are I set my goals first, what I want the emotions become. I mean, what I want to use these kind of emotions, because I don't want to define any emotions in our part. I want to use these emotions to, for example, label our architectural buildings or to tell architecture some things. And then I choose the models of emotions, and then I check if my biosensors data can fit this kind of things, because there are so many kind of models of emotions in literature, I think. But in the application part, I just want to know what kind of models is useful for my aim of study. So maybe I choose not very good one for measuring the emotions, but I think I can choose one that is useful for the application in the field of architecture. Yeah.
And you used EEG signals or EEG?
Yes.
How accurate is it? Because I think I tried it for a project, and the accuracy was low for me. I used PPG and ECG from the wearable technologies, but when I honestly look at my project, I see the accuracy is low, and it doesn't work here for architectural projects. I mean, it doesn't measure the emotions correctly. Could you handle this problem for your project?
It's a very difficult question, yeah. And actually for the accuracy, I think GSR or heart rate is more accurate than EEG, but they will contain less information about emotions, definitely. But if you want to know more about the brain, maybe EEG is the only solution, and it's not so accurate. Also depending on the state of participants. I mean, if they are talking or if they are moving around, the data will be worse than if they are standing or sleeping.
Okay,
Yeah.
many thanks for your information. And I have to read your paper, and I will for sure I contact you for talking more about these topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I actually can add to that, like based on like the previous paper. I'll show you like the one I used, like based on the background. This is the most used, like a complex model of affect to spot different emotions based on like the arousal and valence. So you can see like the different emotions all around and how you can detect the emotions. Maybe like they're kind of basic, they have different variants based on that. But you can use that, or that's mainly what's used in like the literature to spot different emotions. And actually this paper was about the validation of EEG to emotional responses. So you can see here like the different validation techniques we used, and we validated that you can use the different the EEG signals to spot emotions based on objects, or like everything that can be categorized as an object, and that can be architecture as well. But it's not very good in estimating the scenes, the category. So if you're like talking about an urban area or like a scene or something, EEG is not like very good in estimating that, especially in the arousal axis. But for the valence, it gives me like quite acceptable results based on a regression model from the EEG signals. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for your research.
Thank you. Many thanks. Yes, I agree with you, because the emotions are totally different based on the activity and the place we are in, indoor places or outdoor places. And maybe you're right. I never think about it. Maybe EEG working for example, indoor places. I'm working on indoor places, but I try to use low-cost smartwatch, for example, Xiaomi, or I don't know the other brands, but yeah, my accuracy was really low, and it didn't work. I tried to postpone the project to maybe a year later or 2 years later.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. I think we are now out of time, but I want to thank you all. I think all your research about motions, immersive spaces, and interaction and perception, it's very, very important, because we are all thinking about a more active kind of architecture, and all this mixture between hybrid spaces, Internet of Things, and so on and so on. It will be very, very important to really understand how these perceptions, how these emotions can be measured and can be used for these more active architecture or even design processes. So thank you very much. And the last thing, I think it's very important to be aware of how to have a balance between the limitation of the variables, like the restriction of the variables for the laboratory experience, but not at the same time not reduce human beings to laboratory rats. So it's a tricky balance, but you will have how to do that. You will know how to do that. So thank you very much again, and see you around. It was a great
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you so
you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.